Hey everybody, it's Miss Julie. Um, I want to do a science experiment with you today. And what we're going to try to do is take pennies. Pennies are a kind of US money. They're worth 1 cent. You can't buy very much with a penny, but they're fun to collect. And if you collect pennies like I do, you probably have noticed that some pennies look new and they're very shiny and they have a beautiful copper color. Some pennies, though, over time, being in the air, sometimes getting wet, sometimes being touched by people, they get much darker. So look at the difference between this penny and this penny. They're both pennies. They're both worth 1 cent, but one looks very dark and one is bright and shiny. Then this one, you can barely even tell that this is a penny. I love to try to find money when I'm out walking. And I found this penny somewhere, and I think it was buried in dirt for a while or something, but it has really gotten dark. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to clean some of these pennies so that we can try to make a penny that looks not even like a penny. See if we can change it into this. But before we do that, I want to tell you about a couple things. These are the things you'll need for this experiment. You need a couple paper towels. You need some distilled white vinegar, some table salt, a glass dish or a plastic dish, but you cannot use a metal dish for this. You need a 1/4 cup measuring cup and a teaspoon measuring spoon, and you need some pennies, preferably dirty ones. And then I put a pair of tweezers there. I'm not sure if we're going to use those or not. So these are the most common United States coins. There are 4 of them there, but one looks very different from the others. The one that looks different is the penny. The other ones are a silver color, and the penny is coated with copper, and that color that you see there is copper. This is what a penny looked like in 2005. You see that there's a man on there. That man is Abraham Lincoln. He was once the President of the United States, and some people think he was a very great man. The date 2005 is on there. This coin was made in 2005. Now that's the front of the penny where Abraham Lincoln is shown. On the back of the penny, you can see a building. That building is called the Lincoln Memorial. And if you look really closely, there are some arches. In the middle arch is Abraham Lincoln sitting down in a giant chair. It's a statue of Abraham Lincoln. And if you go to Washington, D.C. sometime, you can visit the Lincoln Memorial and see that giant statue of Abraham Lincoln sitting in a chair. It tells us that the money is from the United States of America, and it tells us that it's worth 1 cent. This is the pile of my pennies that we'll be using. You can see that some are pretty bright and shiny. Some are pretty dull, including that one I just showed you that is, you can't even tell it's a penny, it's so dirty. And then some medium ones. They're a little bit shiny still, but getting a little bit darker. Those are the ones we'll use for our experiment. So I pulled out my measuring cups. You see how they fit inside each other, because there's a really big one. That's 1 cup. And then there's one that's a bit smaller. That's 2/3 of a cup. It fits right inside there. And then there's 1/2 cup that fits inside there. And then the smallest one I have is a 1/4 cup, and that fits inside. They nest inside each other. The one we're going to use today is the smallest one, 1/4 cup. And then I brought out my measuring spoons. They also fit inside each other. The largest one, it says right here, is 1 tablespoon. The next one is 1 teaspoon. This one is 1/2 of a teaspoon, and this one is 1/4 of a teaspoon. We are going to use the 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. So let me show you this penny again. This is one of the dirty ones. Do you know money is one of the dirtiest things in the world? It's because so many people handle money. So I might have this money and I go and pay for something, and then the person I pay takes it and puts it in the cash register. And then maybe another person comes up to buy something and they give that person the penny that I just gave as change. And so many, many people touch money, and all that touching makes the pennies dirty. But what I do is after I touch a lot of money, I usually try to wash my hands. So anyway, pennies are coated in copper, and copper, when it mixes with oxygen, which is in the air, it gets this stuff called copper oxide, and that's what makes the pennies look kind of dirty. So the next thing I'm going to do is get my paper towels ready. I'm going to take one paper towel and fold it over and put it down. And I'm going to rip one more sheet and fold it and put it down. And now I feel like I should mark this somehow because we're going to have 2 groups of pennies. So the first group of pennies I'm going to mark with a W on the paper towel because those are the ones we're going to wash after we put them in our solution. And the other one, I'm not going to put anything on the paper towel because we're not going to wash those. I think you're going to like this. Okay, so, and I have my bowl. All right, you ready? I'm going to tip this down so you can see what I'm doing. See my bowl there, and I have my paper towels. This is for the washed ones, and this is for the unwashed ones. So I'm going to take my 1/4 cup measuring cup, and I have distilled white vinegar. I'm going to carefully hold the measuring cup over the bowl, so if I make any spills, the spills will go right in the bowl. And I'm going to fill that up and pour it into the bowl. When you work with vinegar, you'll notice it kind of has a strong smell. Some people like that smell. I don't particularly, but it always reminds me of when I used to dye Easter eggs when I was a little girl. The next thing we need is table salt. I always like this. This has a spout on it. You pull the spout up, and here's my 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. I'm going to hold the teaspoon over the bowl in case I spill, and I'm going to pour salt. This doesn't have to be exact, so all right, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to use this spoon to stir the salt a little bit so it'll mix up in there. So we just did vinegar with some salt. And I'm trying now, when I'm stirring it, and I'm going to give it a minute or so, I'm trying to get the salt to dissolve in the vinegar, so you can't really even, well, it's clouding the vinegar a bit, but you might not be able to see the individual grains of salt. Okay, so now the directions say to take a penny and hold half of the penny in the water and count to 10. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When I take it out, can you see that? The half of the penny that I was holding in that vinegar solution has brightened up a bit, hasn't it? I'm going to try holding it in for 10 more seconds. Will you help me count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, do you see that? That is so cool. It really makes a big change, doesn't it? So now what we're going to do is we'll put all the pennies in this vinegar and salt solution, and we'll wait 5 minutes and see what happens. I will set my clock for 5 minutes, and while we're waiting, I want to tell you about a special copper lady that we have in the United States, in New York. Her name is the Statue of Liberty, and she's made of copper. And I want to tell you the story because it's a lot like what we're doing now. It'll remind you of our experiment. So let's put all the pennies, including, I'm curious about what's going to happen with this very dirty one. I'm going to put all the pennies in here. I'll even put the really shiny one in to see if that makes any change. And just drop them in. And what it said was, don't let them touch each other. So I brought out those tweezers, and I thought maybe there would be a reason to use them. I'm going to use the tweezers to move the pennies apart so that they don't touch each other. Looks like I have a lot of clean pennies in there. Okay, so I'm going to set my clock for 5 minutes. Do you recognize this statue? It's the Statue of Liberty. It sits in New York Harbor. It was made a long time ago by a sculptor in France. Somebody in France decided to give a present to the United States, and the Statue of Liberty is the present they decided to give us. This is what the Statue of Liberty looked when it was being built for the first time. You see the scaffolding around it so that the workers could climb up and put things together. The alarm just went off telling me that it was 5 minutes. So remember, I have 2 paper towels here. One of the paper towels is for the washed pennies that I will be washing. The other one is for the unwashed pennies. So I'm going to see if I can get these out using tweezers. Well, okay. I think you're going to notice a big difference here. Well, the tweezers don't work very well. Let me just grab them with my hands. I'm going to put some of them on this paper towel. They're looking pretty shiny, aren't they? This is the really dirty one. It didn't get very clean. And then I'm going to put some over, well, I'm going to take them to the sink and wash them. So I'm just going to rinse them with water. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just rinsed these off with water. I'm going to put them down on the paper towel that has a W on it, W for washed. Now the experiment says we should wait an hour. So I'm going to set my alarm again. Remember, these are the ones we didn't wash. These are the ones we did wash. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Statue of Liberty. So this is what the Statue of Liberty looked like when she was first built. Do you notice she's not green the way she is now? If you look at pictures taken today of the Statue of Liberty, she's all green. It's because she's been exposed. She's made of copper. She's been exposed to the air and the water, and that mixed with the copper atoms changed her over time. First she was copper colored, and then she turned brown, and then she turned the green that she is today. This is the Statue of Liberty as she looks today. You can see that she's almost all green, and that's from the chemical reaction of the air and the water hitting the copper that she's made of. But if you look at the very top of the torch, you'll notice that that is not green. So perhaps that's not made of copper. Did you look very closely at this picture? If you did, you probably noticed that there's a helicopter in the sky, and I see at least one boat on the water. This is a close-up of the Statue of Liberty's face. You can see she has a crown that's made of 7 rays, and under those rays, do you see those arches? Those are windows that you can look out. Let me show you the next picture. I thought it was kind of cool. So you see the outside. The next picture will show you what it looks like from the inside. Here's a man who's inside the Statue of Liberty. He's looking out those windows we just saw in the other picture. I want to tell you a couple more interesting things I learned about the Statue of Liberty. Her original name was Liberty Enlightening the World, and she weighs 225 tons, which is the same as about 25 T-Rexes. And you know what? Sometimes she gets struck by lightning because she's very tall out in the middle of the water. But I don't think she's ever really been damaged by the lightning. So it's been 1 hour now, and I'm looking for some differences. It seems to me like the ones that I rinsed off afterwards or washed are a little bit shinier. Where I found this experiment, it said if I leave them for like 5 more hours, the ones that I didn't rinse off should start to turn green. So I'm going to wait 5 more hours to come back and show you what happens. I don't know if anything will happen because they sort of seem dry to me, but we'll see. That's what's nice about science. You can make predictions, and sometimes your predictions come true, sometimes they don't. So I couldn't wait 5 hours. I was so excited. I only waited 4 hours. And I'm starting to notice something. If you look at the pennies that have the W on the paper towel, the ones that I washed, they look kind of smooth and just like normal pennies. But if you look at the ones on the paper towel that I didn't wash, do you notice that it's starting to look kind of bubbly or kind of rough on the pennies? It doesn't look like the pennies on the left. They don't look smooth. So it's been 4 hours. These are the pennies that I rinsed off after taking them out of the vinegar and salt solution. And these are the ones that I didn't rinse off. So I'm going to take these pennies and I'm going to rub them with the paper towel, and I don't see anything coming off. Now these pennies, I said to you before, they didn't seem very wet to me. They said if they stayed kind of wet with the vinegar and salt solution, that they might start to turn green. And let me start to wipe these. I don't see anything. And this one is still pretty dirty. I will say though, when I touch them, these are smoother and these are sort of rough. They feel like they have some sort of slime on them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pile like I had at the very beginning. Do you remember that pile I had of the pennies before we started anything? I'm going to put those pennies together. I'm going to turn off the camera and I'm going to take a picture of the pennies with my phone, and then we'll put the beginning pennies, which are these pennies, side by side with these. So we'll have a before and an after picture and see what the difference is. So here we are at the end of the experiment. It looks like the pennies on the left are much darker than they ended up after we cleaned them with vinegar and salt. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't start to turn green as I expected they would, but I think it was still really cool. Look how shiny those pennies are on the right compared to the ones on the left. This is something you could do with your parents, but they have to help you with the vinegar and the salt and the things like that. So I hope that maybe you'll have a chance to do it. If you don't, I hope that you had fun doing it with me. Bye. Hey, wait. I hope you're still here. I looked more closely at the paper towel, and there were smudges of green where I wiped those pennies off. So I drew blue circles around the smudges so that you could see them more closely, because I know it's a little tricky to see it on the paper towel. But it worked. It actually worked. Um, by leaving the vinegar and salt solution on those pennies, I got a little more patina, I guess it's called, which is the layer of green that's formed from the copper oxide. Um, so I wanted to share that with you. The experiment worked in every way that I hoped it would work. I'm so excited. I hope you are too.